when you published your paper in 1994, first of all, I'm going to guess you couldn't imagine that we'd still be talking about it 30 years later. I don't know. Maybe you knew it was going to be a hit. I don't know. But was it a hit immediately?
In some quarters it was. In others, I generated a lot of hate mail.
Really? What was the hate mail about?
The hate mail was basically from people who had, prior to my research, there really was no guidance for people to recommend to clients what the withdrawal rate should be. So they did the best they could and generated their own rules of thumb based on their thinking. Some people thought, well, stocks return 10%, put a lot of money in stocks, you should be able to take 7%. Shouldn't be a problem. And other folks said, oh no, you're in retirement now. You have to be totally conservative, go on, all in bonds, no more than 2.5%. Of course, neither one is accurate. It's somewhere in between. But there are people in both camps who were advisors, who had been advisors for many years and didn't appreciate that an upstart young advisor who just joined the field was coming out with something completely different than be telling their clients, and made, embarrassed. So I got hate mail from those folks, but most of the people seem to be grateful that there was some, at least scientific basis now for the recommendation that they could show their clients, and became successful from that bit.
So it seems to me that throughout these years, and you've published a number of papers, I think I've read them all. It seems to me that you're always focused on total return as opposed to trying to have some sort of income strategy, maybe tilt a portfolio towards high dividend paying stocks. Mm-hmm. Is that your general approach, to focus on total return? And what do you think about the idea that you should try to generate more income in retirement?
Yeah, I have focused primarily on total return. Although, I break the components into dividends and appreciation. I don't think there's anything wrong with using a high dividend stocks as long as the total return is the same. And it may be a benefit that sense if you're in a bad stock market decline and your portfolio is still generating some decent income from those stocks, it may allow you to stick to your plan better than somebody who's all growth stocks with zero dividends and sees their equity melting away day by day and panics and sells. That's not good.
Yeah, definitely could be some behavioral advantages, I guess, if you don't take it too far. Yeah. Okay. I'm curious. So again, the approach that you've always modeled, at least as far as I can have seen, is you start with some percentage that you take out in year one, and then you adjust for inflation thereafter.
That's right. You just throw away that 4% after the year.
Which I think is something that a lot of folks don't appreciate at first when they hear they just think they take 4% every year, which is actually probably the polar opposite of what,
different effect.
Yeah. But as you know, there are a lot of sort of, I kind of view that approach as a static approach, in the sense that the amount you're taking out is the same every year on an after inflation basis. But there are a lot of dynamic approaches, right? Guyton Klinger have published on it. I think maybe Wade Pfau has done some work on it, where, depending on what's going on with inflation or maybe what's going on with the market, you may deviate from an inflation adjusted amount every year. Maybe you put a cap, something, right? Do you think any of those have merits? I mean, in your work with clients, for example, did you ever recommend a sort of some sort of dynamic approach to calculating the withdrawals each year?
No, I'm not specifically in some organized manner, although, it just seems to me to make sense that if you're in a steep stock market decline, it just, would pull your ears in a little bit, cut back your expenses just in case this thing really gets much worse than anyone can imagine. And then as the thing recovers, return to normal. I think that's pretty much in accord with how human beings feel too. If they're in a bad stock market, bear market, they feel less wealthy. They want to spend a little bit less, protect what they have. And I think that's wise.
It would be interesting. I don't know of anything like this exactly, but if there would be some method one could use to calculate, given the circumstances, I should pull back this much. some sort of, guideline.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic for research. Maybe I'll take a look at that in my next round of research. It's a good suggestion.
Well, I look forward to that.
Yeah, it's that will take some experimenting, trying to trial and error, probably see what works. But the advantage of my method is, theoretically, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
If you're picking your withdrawal rate, you should be able to have confidence that, markets will adjust and come back and bring you back to a healthy position. So it's a long-term plan, versus short-term concerns.